So this is the new moon in Taurus forecast. So this begins a Taurus cycle where the sun and moon come together in Taurus. So, when we have the new moons, this is when we start a new cycle. So it's really important to know. And this new moon in Taurus is going to be, starting a time of comfort and peace and connection and realizing that we want to be content in life and feel appreciated and be connected to things that we love and people who love us and want to live in accordance with our values and those things that are valuable to us and those people that are an extension of our value and value system. And there may be some larger themes that have to do with family and family connections and where you're not in alignment with your family. Because they're the first group that gives you your values, so to speak. Our values and value system comes from our family, at least initially. And that, those values filter down then into, they form a very deep basis for our mind and psychology and, general outlook. But then as we grow through life, we recreate a new value system based on who we are as an individual, not necessarily just who we were as a child and inheriting the values of our past. So we inherit the values of our birth family, and then we create a new family as we evolve, or at least we should to some extent. Sometimes those representatives from our birth family make it into our chosen family as an adult, and sometimes they don't. And this is the big struggle with our family and with the Taurus area of life. Even as we evolve and develop from our childhood into, adolescence and adulthood, and then, as an adult, even as adults, if we're going to grow into a new level of awareness and take the values that are developing into the next level, we need to surround ourselves with people that reflect those values. Like for myself, I spent a long time as a musician, and I had that value system. And the value system is, it's about being creative, but there's also, a kind of shared common culture of, some of it is indulgence, drugs as a form of, as an inspiration for creativity, and alcohol, partying, and, the whole sex, drugs, and rock and roll thing. That's a value system. And it's difficult to exist in that. Like someone may love music and love creating music and love performing music, but then other parts of that value structure is not congruent with, like, let's say a vegetarian lifestyle, or, let's say an alcohol and drug-free lifestyle, or a lifestyle that's different. So as I evolved beyond, I call it as I evolved, but as my values changed and they became more about, higher purposes, most of those people that were reflective of my, quote, musician days, we still shared that in common, but the lifestyle values and the people that I surrounded myself with and the activities that I do that don't include that, or those points of reference, no longer exist. And so we can see this throughout our life. And a lot of this has a deep Taurus background, because Taurus is about surrounding ourselves with the things and the people that reflect our values so that we feel content and peaceful with it. That's why Taurus is about, it can be possessive and materialistic, but it's also the possessions and the money and the wealth that we have. It doesn't have to be greedy or materialistic, but it can turn into that when we don't understand the true value of things. When we place value on things that are too material, then it's going to be at the expense of internal qualities of value. So again, value itself, wealth, is not just a static concept. There's material wealth, which gives us the money to have the things that we need, including comfort, because we need comfort in order to meditate. We need a certain amount of structure and peace in order to, outer peace in order to cultivate inner peace. They work simultaneous. But this also migrates into um, things such as, our values themselves aren't just, based on our family. That's our inherent value or our inherited value, and it forms a kind of value structure. But then we keep creating higher forms of value as we evolve, and the possessions and the people and the things that represent it either stay with us or leave based on our evolving value system. And you can look at it like this. If value and arta, it's called arta really, is wealth, then we take our wealth and we buy something with it, and we buy things with it that are a reflection of our values. When I was a musician, let's say, I would spend money on, musical equipment and alcohol and, CDs and stuff like that. That's what I would take my wealth and value and trade it for something that reflect my wealth, or that reflect my values, and that gave me wealth and gave me a sense of connection to my core values. Again, the things we buy, which includes the clothes we wear, are an extension of our values, including the food we eat, which is a big one. What comes into our mouth and goes out of our mouth is also a big expression of value and wealth. So the more we value ourselves, the less we want to eat poison in the form of, fast food, or even, let's say, meat. For someone like myself who has been a vegetarian out of, because of the humanity and the morality behind it for a long time, those things start to change. And our possessions now, like I would say my possessions, like the music I buy now is music that is reflective of the teachings that I hold dear, like of, bhajans or kirtan music, or things that are elevated in that regard. And, the clothes I would wear or the things that I buy have to do with, spiritual objects, or, I buy things that allow me to, do my business better, that allow me to, get my message out. But they're an extension of my core values. And there's always these trade-offs that are trying to be balanced and harmonized between materiality and, spiritual growth. And when we can bring these things together and they can be congruent, that's when we feel like we're really in the flow. And when the people in our life are an extension of our values, then we're surrounded and we're supported in that. And so when you look around the room you're sitting in, you see that the objects in that room are an extension of your values, what you value internally. We bring it externally. So this is all Taurus type of stuff. And so the new moon in Taurus, which is on Wednesday, May 28th, is a time for us to really begin that cycle of values, make sure, and we're going to notice how much we're surrounded by those people that affirm and reinforce how we want to feel, and that also, of course, connects us with our family and the relationship we have with them, and the values we share, and the places that we don't share. And this is why at some point family relationships can become strained and difficult, because we start to develop different than the way we were raised, and we have to make a concerted effort to reach back into that part of ourself and try to connect around that common ground, or not, or realize there's not enough commonality to go forward with an individual. And if we're trying to bridge that gap between where our values are incongruent and the other people aren't, this is also a problem. And this is what can happen where family dynamics break down as people get older. Maybe, let's say, you as a child, or let's say even you as the child of your parent and now being grown up, or let's say of your siblings, where you don't share the same values as your siblings, and you try to bridge that gap by finding common ground, by finding common values, things you can agree on, and you try to do that, and all they can do is find the things where you disagree on. At some point that becomes very difficult to manage. Same is true with other friends. You're trying to establish common value, and they're just pointing out where it's difficult. Then that might be a situation where at some point you realize this energy that I have to exchange with this person is not worth it. And I only want to surround myself with people that are if they don't share the same values, they at least share the same value of wanting to find common ground. That's also a value, and that's a value choice. So these are very interesting times, and when we have the new moon, it's a time when sun and moon come together and initiates a new cycle based on that. And it's happening in the nakshatra of Rohini, where the moon is in its most favorable place, favorable in the sense of bringing about a high level of beauty and connection and respect for others. So the next month is really a time to get clear about that, to get clear about how valued you are, and to make sure that you're in situations where you feel valued and feel appreciated, and also that you're doing the same. And check in about how much you might say you want to be appreciated, but do you also appreciate? Are you giving what you say you want to get? And are you clear about what that is? Are you willing to, exist in a peaceful solitude, which is the highest quality of Taurus, a peaceful solitude? Moon is exalted there, and the moon is where we need to feel peaceful in ourself first. When there's restlessness, then we're going to tend to cling too much to the other person's validation and to have them value our values, right? This is the big hook that makes it difficult to separate, because we want people from the past, let's say, to appreciate us for our values. And of course we do. But at some point, and it's hard to exist around those who, let's say that you've developed a love of like yoga and Indian spirituality, but your family still thinks it's devil worship or some kind of weird thing where you're worshiping elephants and all kinds of crazy stuff from a Western paradigm, and you want them to at least not judge you harshly for it, or maybe at best like actually appreciate it. And when they don't, you become restless and ungrounded. That process of you becoming restless and ungrounded is the point, not their validation. That's their path. And I tell you this somewhat through experience, is that you being congruent around it, regardless of what they say, will switch the situation. It doesn't mean you have to interact with them, by the way. Again, that's the whole kind of thing. You can actually just be established in who you are and calm and peaceful and settled in your values and value system, and you will see others. If you don't engage in the battle, you will see them respect your values and you as a result. Often you have to be willing to walk away and willing to break the connection in order to establish that value and those values. So this is a overview of the Sun-Moon conjunction, the new moon in Taurus in Rohini Nakshatra that just started here on Wednesday, and this will be a prevailing theme for the next month. So now I'm going to do the forecast for my gold members, those at my website who get this forecast focused on each of the 12 astrology signs. So if you're not a member, you can also join and get a chart reading template and several other things, and also daily forecasts. So this is what my members get: daily forecasts. When we have the full moon and the new moon, they get that forecast based on their sign and all the others. They also get a chart reading template so they can understand their astrology chart much better. And you can do it. You can get it for 1 penny for a 2-week trial. So just 1 penny, you can check that out and check this out as well. So anyway, I'll do the forecast now for my gold members.